Hi, we're here today to talk about a very important subject which has been affecting our community here in Salem, Oregon. And that is the problem we have with meth houses and the damage it's doing to our community and our people. What I'd like to discuss is what we have found out, what we're trying to help, and what you can do to help our community become stronger and better. So with us today is Pearl Rudd, and she is going to speak with us about what she has learned in the recent year about meth.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
Well, thanks for being with us. And so tell me, meth, how has it affected your family?
Well, everyone knows a little bit about it, but I learned a lot from moving into a cul-de-sac in what I thought was a nice neighborhood in Southeast Salem. And come to find out, I'm living next to meth users, and so it's definitely changed my life in a negative way.
Is it just using?
I think they're making it. More than one person on the block knows that there's at least one type of drug going on in that household. It's been verified by more than one person.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So if you were to say this home has drugs in it and the people are using it, how many people in the cul-de-sac in the area actually know what's happening, and what are they doing to put a stop to it?
Multiple people on the cul-de-sac know, and I think they all want to do something about it, but it gets to a point where they don't know what to do. And then when we come up with something beyond the police, because we haven't had any success with them, then they all kind of back out and are like, no, I want nothing to do with it, because they're afraid of retaliation.
So you have an issue with asking the police to help. What would you ask of them and why?
We've had problems with brawling, fights, violence, child abuse, just everything. You can smell the illegal drugs that they're doing, and they're disgusting, destroying property next door, and they're renting, so. And the police have done nothing. We call, everyone's on the block is pretty much called, and nothing happens. They either show up and, like if a fight occurs, they would show up, talk to them on the sidewalk, and then everyone would just go their separate way. Nothing would ever change. And they would never come and talk to the neighbors to figure out what was really going on.
So your neighbors, this area in the cul-de-sac, would you say they're older houses or newer houses, or how would you describe?
The houses were built 19 years ago, and all the houses look pretty good, except for there's two on our block, but the one next to me specifically is pretty run down. So we have two bad houses on our block, and yeah. One of them's completely falling apart. They have a small truck with 6 full-size dogs inside, and they're definitely doing something illegal there. It's pretty obvious. The people around them have been calling. They're at the beginning of the cul-de-sac, and right next to me at the end. They just don't take care of the house, and they're up all night, and they don't have jobs, and it's very clear to everyone else that something's definitely wrong there.
So let me understand. You and your husband are raising a family. You move into a home, and this is in a cul-de-sac. These are not apartments. These are not dilapidated buildings. This is a suburb, a community, what people call middle-class living. Mm-hmm. And you have a meth house that's manufacturing, and another home that is engrossed with manufacturing, using, abuse, destruction. What signs do they have on the outside of the house of these once beautiful homes?
Well, capitation of a home, there's mold, rot, garbage all over the place, multiple cars that either don't work or there's just too many for what's in that household. We're talking about 3-bedroom houses, and there's more than 7 people in this specific house, and the other one down the street is the same. They have video cameras, surveillancing, who knows what. They're very nosy about what's going on outside. Like, they want to kind of keep to themselves, but at the same time, they don't want to let people in on what's going on with them, but they're very nosy on what's going on with everyone else. So I can't even go in the cul-de-sac with my kids without having them all over the place with, 10 kids playing outside constantly. So.
Okay, when you say that there's several cars, are these all junkers?
No, they're nicer vehicles. They're big lifted trucks, rims.
Lifted trucks?
Lifted truck, big
Wow.
SUV. They're all black on black, blacked out windows, everything. And I don't see how people who really do not leave their home and work, all they do is play and get hundreds of shipments in the wintertime, how they can afford
my
vehicles
goodness.
like that.
I cannot, I'm sorry, I just do not understand how someone who is not employed can live in a large two-story house and have several expensive vehicles in a yard.
5.
5 of them, tinted windows, jacked up chrome wheels, and they're on benefits.
I would assume they are because I don't know. From my experience of people who aren't on benefits, not that I'm saying everyone on benefits, you know, they're there for a reason, but they just don't seem to me like I don't know, there's just something fishy about them. Doesn't seem like they're working like the rest of us.
So has anyone talked to you? I mean, it's one thing to say, I'm a neighbor and I'm unhappy with my neighbor, but what has the other neighbor said to you? I mean, how many?
I've had quite a few people approach me.
Because you're right next door to them?
Because I'm next door. 3 people live across the street, 3 people down the street. And then I know of 3 other people, and actually less than a week ago I had someone from the other side who lives right behind them on the next cul-de-sac come to my house and try and talk to me about it. And she was elderly, and most of these people have bought these homes for retirement.
20 years ago.
Yeah, but when it was nice, and these people have only lived here for a year and a half, and they've really destroyed it. So they're at a loss.
The people in the house who are doing the illegal activities have destroyed a beautiful home.
And people are coming to me because we're a younger couple, and they're all elderly. We're talking about people in their 70s, 80s. One of them has a mother who's 101 who lives behind them.
So fragile.
Fragile. And they're practically to the point of tears about it, so.
They wanted to retire, they wanted to be safe, they moved into a nice cul-de-sac, quiet end of their life, and now they have to contend with one household. Now you counted 3 on one side, 3 on up the street, and 3 on the other side, plus your home. That would be 10 families saying this is a problem.
And on the other side, because at the other end of the cul-de-sacs is a mobile home park, and there's a woman in her 80s and another house on that property that's complaining about the same thing. And all these people don't have an option to move. This is what they've chosen. This is how they're gonna, unless they're gonna go in a nursing home, this is where they're gonna be. So
the rest of their life.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be the golden years. And the meth house is making a dozen families miserable. So what does the city do about this, since the police are not doing anything?
There's lots of evidence of what they're doing. It's what the police is willing to acknowledge. So this is what a nightly basis is, especially on the weekend. So we go to bed at a normal time, and those people are up drinking, smoking, partying, smoking pot, doing everything else you know they're doing. And you can't have the windows open. You have to have the air conditioner on just so you can hear a muffle. Constant cursing, yelling. I mean, they're out of control. When the fence blew down, when we had that big storm, my owner put up an 8-foot fence because I was like, I don't want to be here. 8 feet because I can't handle 8 feet. I wasn't even there 6 months, and I was like, I want to leave, you know. And I'm not trying to like give up, because it's like Northeast Salem trash is taking over South, which is going to take over West, which is whatever, you know. Like we're running out of places to live, and I always thought moving on a cul-de-sac would make a difference, but I miss being in an apartment.
My question is this. If you've made calls to the police and the police chat with them to quiet them down and then let them go back to business as usual, do you have any idea why?
No idea. It never made sense. You would think that when you call 911 because someone outside is brawling and you think someone's gonna get shot or stabbed, or you get in an argument with them, a screaming out fit to get them to stop because I'm trying to get my kids to sleep and they're screaming for no reason. You call 911 and the police don't even come to your door and talk to you. They don't put out the fire. They let the idiots go back inside and they leave. And then you never hear another thing about it. And we call the city about vehicles and we call the police about violence and no one ever gets arrested. And I'm like, it's right in front of your face. You can't see the security cameras, the trash, the disgusting house, all these vehicles, loudmouth female, 7 people plus living in the household. It makes no sense to me.
So if you have 7 people living in a house that can't be more than a 3-bedroom, how many of those are adults?
4.
So where do the children, where would you
Maybe
think
5.
they sleep? If you are having every room filled with an adult or 2, where are the kids sleeping?
I have no idea. And those kids are definitely have issues. I cannot allow my children to play with them because of the trust. I don't trust those people. I don't know what's happened to those kids, and I don't want those kids near my kids at all. And it puts me in a bad situation because I'm not here to put down a child or say you can't play with my kid, but I'm not gonna talk or let them play or any of that because I'm gonna have to take my kids inside. I don't trust those people, so I can't trust the kids.
So it's a risk factor.
Yeah.
You cannot risk your children for someone else's abuse of their children.
Because what I've heard from the screaming, I don't want that damage to happen to my kids. Because kids tend to, it's a ripple effect, copy what they have been shown.
So you're telling me here are all these different homes, elderly people retiring, the police have been called, they do nothing, the city's been called, they tell them to shuffle their cars around or tidy up their yard. And what about the trash? I mean, at some point they're bound to have to remove it. What do they do with all this garbage?
Well, trash day, it's not my favorite day. It's usually stuffed, overfilled. It used to be flying all over the cul-de-sac because it's just all over the place. But they load boxes or bags with trucks. They backed in a moving U-Haul, which I was like, yay, they're moving. But no, they just carried a bunch of plastic blue tubs and put it in the thing and it left. And I'm like, I don't think they're not doing something illegal. They are, and I think they're disposing of something. There's too much activity. For a normal household, I would never do something like that. I wouldn't back up a moving truck and have, covered boxes to move stuff. My trash isn't overfilled because I'm a slob. My yard is kept up because that's what I do. We have a family, so people who don't work and don't have jobs, how can they not mow their lawn? It was literally more than 15 inches. So that picture behind us is a picture of their lawn, which it was actually 2 weeks after that picture was taken, so the grass was a lot longer than that before the city finally came out and dealt with it. I have to say, the city police department, that's a different issue on my opinion on that, but the city, all they can really do is come out and say, mow your lawn, keep up your stuff, you have to put your trash in the dumpsters, your cars need to be licensed, they have to have tags, and they need to see plates and all that stuff. They have to be running and they have to move positions every 5 days. I've learned a lot on codes and things like that because of the city. They're pretty diligent on coming out, but the police department, they have a car that doesn't even have a title. They took the plates off since the city was there, and it hasn't been dealt with, and 2 of them have never even ran. So I'm kind of wondering, when does the police department get involved? Because I'm pretty sure one of them's at least stolen. It makes no sense. They've always hidden it behind other things. No one has a car that just doesn't move.
So, let me see. Vehicles that are not right, lawns that's not cared for, homes that are a disaster. Now I get to tell my story. Pearl is my daughter, and as grandma, I get to stay the night at my daughter's home. Well, one night, it was last summer, I opened up the bedroom window, it was the window to the front of the house, and slept. Cool summer evening in what seemed like a calm cul-de-sac, and all of a sudden, smoke hit, and I sat up thinking, oh my gosh, the house is on fire. There's something happening. So I immediately jump up And I smell the smoke, and I run out the bedroom, and there's no smoke in the house area. So I went ahead and went back to the room, and I could smell it. I thought, oh my goodness, this is outdoors. So I ran outside to see whose house was on fire. I saw the gentleman next door from this house outside, and their home has a large garage out front. The front windows of the garage are covered up with ducks for the Oregon Ducks, and there's these little black video cameras that post outward away from the house to videotape everybody or anyone who gets near their garage. Well, he went inside. I looked around and could smell this. Well, I contacted 911 and I told them what I saw, what I smelled, and I said, I don't know where the smoke is coming from. And we have elderly people across the street and elderly people at the other place on the street. This could be dangerous if it's coming from their yard. If it doesn't seem to be this place, I don't know where it's coming from. Can you send someone out? They sent out a fire department, but I think they knew what was going on because they didn't turn the alarms on. They just rolled the silent alarm, that's what they call it, a silent alarm, up to the property and got out. And the guy was out front. He's, oh, hey, how you doing? He was all friendly with the firefighters, and the firefighter was really curt with him and went, just stand back and don't talk to me. And he walked up to me and he told me, don't worry, it's not a fire. Well, later in the evening, a couple hours later, it was 2 a.m, the smoke hit again, and this time it belched out and it loaded the room. It burnt my eyes, and I now have dry eye condition. My tear ducts don't work properly. The chemicals burnt my eyes, burnt my lungs, changed a little bit of my voice, and have caused damage to my throat. Why? Because they were venting their meth lab. They want to pretend it's not there. The city refuses to step forward and say, hey, they're venting. Fire department comes out, knows what it is, but they won't go in the premises. They don't think they have a right, even though you have several neighbors calling and saying, we see them and we smell them doing pot or meth. We hear them, we watch them hide their debris and take off with it. These people don't work, they're in this house all the time, but they can have $30,000 vehicles. I've been injured by the chemicals that happened, and we have some pictures of trees directly after the meth venting. I filmed the outside Pearl's home, her trees, with one of the station cameras, so it's nice high resolution. And you will see the pockmark blistering on all the leaves of the maple tree in the backyard, and the front tree has a little tree. All of those curled leaves from the gas, it just blistered, pocked, and gave these little marks. And in the backyard above the deck is a white awning. And there are these droplets that are this wonderful red mist light. There's no way that can't be the antihistamine that they've been using to make meth. When you vent it out, the dye, the red dye that goes on the outside of the tablet, is going to go into mist form. And that red dye coated the entire awning. Now, if that's not enough evidence to get something done, I don't know what is. But my question is, why is Salem the meth capital of the world? And what can we do to stop it? Now, I don't know if you know this, but back at the turn of the century in 1900s, early 1900s, in Japan, they actually created meth. It came from Japan. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. When it was created in Japan, it was a very mild form, just like opium was for other countries, and cocaine was just the cocoa leaves. Mm-hmm. And even marijuana, when it was used, people would, chew on the leaves and they'd make other things, various things. It was in a natural state. But after it left Japan in World War II, it went to Germany. Hitler got it. And Hitler's scientists purified the entire form of meth and created crystalline meth. Okay, now he shot up with meth all the time, and that explains a lot about Hitler and his men who were able to do the most horrifically evil things that history has shockingly known recently. There's some bad going around. But at the end of World War II, oh, one more note. What they found is that the kamikaze pilots actually used the meth. They would take it before driving their planes into ships. It gave them the courage or the high to go through with that endeavor, which is a historical truth. And you can look it up. Just go ahead and look on, well, Netflix is a great place. Go to Netflix, look up documentaries, and research meth. And you will find several documentaries which will give you dates, times, names, and places. You don't have to take my word for it. But after World War II, Salem, Oregon is where meth, crystalline meth, came to. And it was very low level. Meth kind of lingered in the background and was privately used. It wasn't very popular in its way. LSD was going on, pot sort of came up the ladder. But here's the thing that you need to consider. When they blocked the different kinds of drugs through the Drug Enforcement Administration by vetoing and blocking off different particular ingredients they used to make the other LSD and acid and the like, they tried to do the same thing with meth. Though they were successful, very, very much so, on the other forms by blocking individual ingredients, meth just simply sidesteps what they do. They say they use the antihistamine for decongestants as a mainstay in their producing of the meth. So what they do is they say you can only buy 2 of these boxes, and you have to register, and you have to get it from the pharmacy, and they pass all this legislation. All they do is just sidestep it and create a different form. So it becomes more brutal, more pure, more nasty, and it's actually doing serious damage. As you see from these photos here, these are from Multnomah County Sheriff's Department. Why? Because Salem is the world's state capital for meth. And in Multnomah County, we have a lot of meth users. And one wonderful officer who was battling against this noticed the trend. So he began collecting photos of various people who have gone to jail. These are their mug shots. And what happens to their face is rather striking. Go online and look up the faces of meth. And what you will find is some nice close-up shots of how people who were already in trouble in the first shot digressed into something far worse. They are reduced down to skeletal form, and it's not fair. This meth is a poison, and it's a danger, and it's becoming more pure. And even though Salem, Oregon, we are the meth capital, it's now being regrouped in South America and brought right up through the center and spread out. They're trying to get into Canada. And they're not going to be very successful. Canada has some very strong laws, and they don't pussyfoot around with this. But they've been hiding out on some of the reservations, and because their laws are different on the reservation. I have a real problem with this. Bottom line, people have to choose to say, we aren't going to accept this in our community. We aren't going to accept doing this. We need to be educated, and there needs to be action on the state of the official people. If the officers, if the mayor's office says we're going to defer to the knowledge of the police department aren't willing to do their job, well, I'm sorry, but the mayor's office has to stop deferring to the opinion of those who are not doing what they're supposed to be following through. Now, I worked with the Department of Drug Enforcement Administration out of Seattle, and they're very aware that Salem is the meth capital, and they're not pleased about it. And the officer that I was working with, I can't say his name, told me that When they think about Salem and Oregon, they see Oregon as a very open and free in opinion of drugs. And so they've really kind of backed off because they think that our government thinks that it's perfectly fine to have drugs in our community. What it has afforded us is several bony, sick people on the side of the road bumming for money. You can tell someone who is on meth by the way they look. The drawn-in cheeks, the dirty body, a kind of graying to the skin. All of that is the effect of the drug. The drug tries so hard to get out of the body that they get kind of a gray haze to their body. And the aggressiveness, the inattentiveness, we're not doing them any favors giving them money on the side of the street. And, note to self, it is not illegal to panhandle and beg for money. However, it is illegal to give money to a panhandler. So if an officer decides he wants to be ornery, he can cite you for giving him the money. So think it over. You know, there are other resources. I'm not saying times are not tough. They are most definitely tough. But the people have made it common. I was coming off of I-5 going to Market Street heading north, and that corner going right underneath the bridge, the ramp for the I-5, is completely taken over by people who will, you know, panhandle right there. Mm-hmm. And I had the terrible experience of looking over, and there was no one there at that particular time, and there was human feces smeared on the cement barrier. So when you park, you look over and say, oh, that's just not right. You cannot be okay if you are doing meth. Your thought process is not right. The violence that happens, the selling of body, the stealing of things from home, losing family and friend, it's nothing but destruction, and our community is better than that. Here in Salem, we have been a bedroom community for a very long time. We have a magnificent history. We have wonderful pioneers who are buried up at the Pioneer Cemetery who helped build this into something beautiful. And to have it lost for 40 years of stupidity is just wrong. We have to hold them accountable. It's time that we say we want our community back.
I've had more than one person visit, and they always say, I can't believe Salem is the capital of Oregon. And I say, why? And they say, well, because Salem's disgusting. And I'm sorry, but I have to agree. I mean, everyone knows that the high hills in West Salem or far south is beautiful houses, but honestly, North Salem, not all the places in North Salem, but it's really kind of the negativity and people not keeping things up, and the crime rate is taking over. And I think we are, I don't know, we're just not taking care of our city. The state capitol's dirty. I've never, you know, growing up it was always spotless, and now it's like, I don't know, mold or something growing on the outside. There's trash all over the streets. It's just a mess. And I think we are, what did you say about the detective? Is that who it was that you talked to? That we're more lenient on drugs?
I do believe that's because Oregon has passed the right for people who are ill, as in nerve damage, in the sense of they broke a spinal cord, you know, something in their neck and back, if they are dying of cancer, if they have AIDS and are very sick. We have passed a law for health that if someone, when nothing else will work, you're going through chemo and you are in misery and you don't have an appetite, a doctor can prescribe marijuana, and they do it in like little caplets. It's not just smoke. They make butter out of it. They drink it in a tea. You know, there's ways that people can use it in a medicinal sense. And these are people who are dying. I'm not talking about healthy, normal people. I'm talking about people who are chronic.
So how do people get them? They just get a doctor's note?
First of all, they have to show that they're really sick. Second of all, it has to be something that the doctor feels would actually help them. Because like if you have to go through chemo, you lose your appetite. And the worst thing you can do is not gain nutrition. Well, when they use the marijuana, it increases their appetite. It calms the burning nerve pain for what they go through with the surgeries and everything else. It's very beneficial that way. But these are chronic cases. These are delicate situations. But we have passed it as a health provided under the guidance of a doctor. And yes, Albany has a clinic where it is given. And honestly, I think it makes sense, because if it helps, it's natural, and these are people who are passing away. Okay, addiction is no longer a question here. They're not doing well. This is just to give them ease and comfort until the end, all right? That is the demeanor of this law. It's to take care of something that's very, very hard. But it's not to be said that because we believe in the care of people who are in, well, the last bit of their life, needing ease and comfort, well, that's not the same as we're easy and we think everybody can just smoke, toke, and blow all they want. I'm truly concerned about our ecology. These meth houses, when they blow up, people get hurt, and my children and grandchildren are right next door to it. What if they catch fire? What if your home catches fire? That's not fair. What about the elderly? 101-year-old woman in the backyard. Meth house blows up.
The thing is, I think people who do drugs, usually most of them do more than one type. So for a fact, everyone knows that they're smoking marijuana next door. I just don't understand, because the elderly woman across, who lives right behind them and I'm beside them, she told me, she goes, I see them because there's like a fence, but you can see through it, and they cover it with this blue tarp. And she pulls back the tarp, which I don't recommend. You're dealing with drug addicts here. And she says, well, you shouldn't be doing that. And they're passing a huge bong around, and there's multiple adults and children running around. And I'm like, okay, first of all, they don't work like normal people, but they are healthy. They're, they're doing drugs and unhealthy in that way, but there's nothing wrong with them that is obvious or apparent other than their stupidity. To me, there's nothing wrong with them. I don't know why they're smoking pot. I don't know why they have groups of people doing it. It engulfs the entire cul-de-sac. It's really disgusting. I personally don't believe in pot. I get it for people, ailing, having, problems like that, but most of the time people want to get a car just to get high. And I'm sitting here, okay, fine, let's go with on the side of marijuana. If you have it, are you allowed to smoke it in big groups in a residential area with children running around, then drive a vehicle even though you're high and drunk? Because they smoke and they drink and they party till early 4 a.m. This is like a nightly thing.
And the children are involved in the middle of all this.
Yeah, so I want to know, fine, if we're going to pass this law and it's already been passed and you can do all the pot that you want, is it legal to do it that way? Because I thought you had to go somewhere and do it. I thought that children shouldn't be involved in that. I thought you couldn't have groups of 10 adults sitting in the jacuzzi getting high. I'm not allowed to even go in my backyard because I don't want to smell that crap.
So they have a jacuzzi as well.
They do. They have a jacuzzi.
Wow.
We have a 50-inch TV. These people, I don't know how big their TV is, but it's like ginormous. And I'm like, how do you even afford that?
When you don't work.
Yeah, and
Not working.
The female of the household, seriously, I doubt weighs 100 pounds. She is vicious, cruel, mean. She's awful to those kids. I've seen her yell at, I don't know, the sheriff's department. I don't know. You hear a lot of things because she's very mouthy to everybody. And she lied on something that happened to her car, said it got hit by a car when obviously it was vandalism, probably from a drug deal gone bad. And they got on her about, this doesn't make sense. The insurance company sent us to talk to you. And she blew up and freaked, never got arrested for being a liar. And he just left. And I was like, it's funny that I have to hear everything. And I'm in my house and I can hear every word that she's saying. We know so much about them just because they're loud and obnoxious. Got a hold of the owner of their house, who's he has enough money to be arrogant, but he's too stupid to understand that there's no way he's going to get away with acting like that. I spoke with him on the phone, and he basically told me, well, you can move. I'm not kicking them out. I'm not going by one person's opinion. Yeah, 2 days later, someone knocked on my door from the other street saying that I have a problem with these people. And I was like, join the club, because Salem PD doesn't do anything. It's funny because if you actually tally things up, Salem has the most police. We have the sheriff's department, we have the state police, we have the
Marion County,
Salem PD. I mean, there's so many officers, and none of them have done anything. They're supposed to be there for you. Every time I've ever called them, it's pointless.
It's called the criminal justice. It's not the innocent. It's not the man who pays the taxes justice system. It's the criminal's justice system, which means the unjust get justice. I'm sorry, but it's time for change. This has got to stop. I remember sitting over, I was babysitting with family and friends. We were playing, and a police car rolled up to their home, and I thought, yay, maybe someone's going to do something about these people. The officer in a police car, in a uniform, with a weapon, gets out and goes into the house. This is 10 o'clock at night. A neighbor, he saw them. He watched. At midnight, he had to leave, and they were still inside that home, which is known for all the drug abuse. The officer, at some point in the night, left. Now, I'm thinking, okay, Salem's finest goes to this home dressed in proper gear with a city car. Pearl calls in and says, what happened? And they have no record of an officer showing up at that house. I'm sorry, that's not an accident. What right would an officer have to go in and sit for over 2 hours in a drug house? Someone's playing games. Someone's got their hand in the cookie jar. And I'm not just saying that to be nasty and flip. That's been confirmed by the federal department in Washington, D.C. when I spoke with them, who referred me to the Seattle office, Drug Enforcement Administration, who I've worked with for an entire year now. And they have been on surveillance because there's a lot of dirty going on here in Salem, and the police know it. The only houses that I've ever witnessed being taken down are small houses, not these large manufacturing houses which seem to be protected and ignored by the police, but the small houses, the petty user who's making enough for him and his buddies, but he's not selling it. Those houses get knocked down. Oh yeah, you'll see those on the book it's a small thing, Or the house that catches fire, those will get shut down and investigated. But the large manufacturing ones with the expensive vehicles, the 72-inch screen televisions, the jacuzzis in the back with the 90-pound woman and the pop pipes going around. Now, we don't know what was in that pipe. Was it pot? Was it meth? They're consumed the same way. The bottom line is that our personal private government right here in Salem will not stop the meth unless this community gets in an uproar and says, we've had enough. We want our community back. We want our children safe. The children are selling to the children. The parents of these young kids are making it and giving it to their kids to sell it in the schools. It's not the big scary guy around the corner who's selling it. It's the children selling it to your children. And if that's not scary enough, if that's not going to activate anyone to say, the strange thing is that we're going to do this interview and we had a dozen other people. And yet the magic and miracle of television has decided for these people to fear these drug dealers, these drug manufacturers. Why? Because of movies? The truth is, everyone can make a difference. But if we don't stand up and say, this is our city, this is where we live, we're not moving. Whether we rent here, whether we own, if we're retired, if we're a young family doing our job, we're not going anywhere. We're paying our taxes, and we have a right to be safe. one house against a dozen normals, you go to jail and put the kids in foster care. But you know, it's strange. I talked with the different people that had to do with child care and putting children in drug-affected homes. And what I was told by the Protective Services for Children is, unless the police arrest these people and somebody goes to jail and we have a crime, there will be no help for them. Because our budget, the money we have available in this tore-up economy, there's no money to protect the children in our community. Mm-hmm. The police will not arrest unless there's a broken bone, a raped child, or worse, a dead one. You can beat your children all you want. The city will not stop you. There will be no penalty. It has to be enough to get a parent into prison. So how do you feel being a family that's actually doing what you're supposed to and following the rules of society, being told to get out of your home to make room for people who are criminals?
People would think we're just saying that, but when I talked to the city, they said, you have an option. And I said, really? Because I would love to know that option, because I've been dealing with this for a year and nothing's changed. And she goes, well, you can move. And I was like, are you serious? I have to move my house, which was the first picture you saw on there, how spotless the front is, inside and out. I take care of it. And the funny thing is, everyone on that block owns, and me and the drug users next door are both renters. Okay? Not every renter is bad. I'm not. I take care of everything, and I don't think I should have to leave. My husband works, and I'm there to take care of my children, and I can't even have a sane, stable home when everything's like that.
That's not right or fair.
I can't believe they told me that I should move. And even when I talked to their owner, he's like, well, you can leave. And I was like, you know what? I'm not on state benefits. I never have been. I never plan on being. We pay taxes. I do everything I'm supposed to do. I don't break the law. I call the police when they're supposed to help, and they do nothing but just walk away. I don't think it's fair. I don't think I should have to pay taxes if they're not going to do their job. I don't think, why don't I just lie, cheat, steal, and sell drugs? I'll get away with it. Why do they get away with being stupid? It's not fair. I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
You're not supposed to go anywhere. You're supposed to have a home.
I hate driving down the street. I'm so angry living there. It's embarrassing. Never mind. We'll just cut the whole thing. Just regret moving in there. $2,000 to get in that freaking house, and it was pointless.
But you know what, Pearl? Think about it. I mean, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. You're being right. You're being right. They're not being right, and they're being allowed to cause damage to the family, and that's not acceptable. So, it's time to put a stop to it.
I don't want to move. I hate that.
Everyone. Where?
I don't know where to move. It's just like, and everyone says like it's just taking over, and where am I supposed to move? Buy a $400,000 house? We're normal people who work. Yeah, my husband went to college, but we can't afford to buy a house like that.
Not with little ones right now.
I would love to be able to pick up and leave with my husband and my 3-year-old, my 4-year-old, but I can't do that.
In this economy, tell me one person who can.
It's so difficult, and I just don't understand how they can have all this stuff, and we work so hard, and they're not working.
And yet they sit in a jacuzzi, have giant cars, giant TV, and everyone protects them because they're breaking the law.
I just don't call the police for anything.
Well, I don't see anywhere in Salem left to live.
There isn't.
I don't. I do not see anywhere left in Salem to live. I mean, it started in the center area with this older stuff is slummy. Well, it begins spreading out and out and out and out, and it has consumed Salem. We are the meth capital of the world. There's no more places that we can call home. And whose fault is it? And okay, let's not say fault. Let's say responsibility. Who is responsible to protect us? It's time that the ones who are responsible for keeping our community clean do so. And if they're not willing, fire them. They have no right. You know, I've come across repeated situations where the police department has chosen to not deal with the situation because they don't want the paperwork. They don't want the paperwork.
It's true, because I always park my car inside because of all the problems with them, and I don't even talk to these people. Leave my car out for 2 nights and they key it. And I do a police report. I have my husband go fill it out. Not a phone call, nothing. And I'm like, you know what? When we call the city, they call it the Exmoor house. They've always said that. They tell me things that I don't even think they're supposed to tell me. And they key my car, and what am I supposed to do? Take him to court and have an altercation in the front yard afterwards? I can't do that until they leave or I leave. What do I have, like 2 years to do that? My car has letters on it. It's just screwed up, and they just go on their merry way like they never did anything at all. I even told their owner that, and he laughed in my face about it. It's like, wow, well, that's pretty funny.
Well, I'm sorry. Usually the owner is getting a kickback from the meth that's being produced. So why in the world would he want to stop it? Why would he want to stop it? He doesn't want to stop it. He knows what's going on in there. And the irony is, these are both houses that were bought from the bank for HUD, and then HUD resold them for money. HUD house.
HUD house.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but the Drug Enforcement Administration has made it quite clear. The work that we're doing right here is going to them. And it's going to be produced. You're seeing it now on television. It's going to be on YouTube. It's being sent to the private families, and it will also be sent, multiple copies, up to the Drug Enforcement Agency in Seattle. It's part of their investigation, as well as it's going to Washington, D.C. So the Exmoor House, as the police department calls it, and the city of Salem knows it, will be shut down one way or another. No one can produce that much meth and use that much drugs and all of the rest that's going on there without it being shut down. There is piles and piles of garbage built up. You must understand, there are city codes that say you don't pile garbage alongside your house. And yet, as filthy as they are, all of their garbage is very fastidiously bundled up in black bags and tied off. It's put into boxes and closed. Nobody actually sees their garbage. It's all packaged. Now, either they're doing something illegal while they're disposing of contraband, or they are the sloppiest, dirtiest people with the cleanest trash in town, which I just don't see how the two can merge. There's what, 4 dogs in their very small backyard that are stinking up the entire area?
That's what, yeah.
So
it's very small backyard.
When is this going to stop? When the community says enough. So consider this a pantsing of City of Salem, Salem Police Department, and all the others. And hello, State Capitol, you're going to get a copy of this wonderful report as well, because we are supposed to be, Salem, Oregon, the capital of the state of Oregon, where the governor is, where the laws are passed, where justice is made, where things are better. Not known for, oh, there's the meth capital of the world, and look at all the people on the side of the street bumming money who look like walking skeletons. Oh, look at all the scabs. We have a lot of sick, lazy, stupid things going on, and it's time for it to stop. My family has a right to live in a home when they are paying their taxes, doing what they're supposed to, and living a healthy life. These are the people we want in our community. We do not need people in our community who want to destroy it. And when I say destroy it, I mean the officers who turn their back or pocket change. I'm talking about the city hall that defers to the officers who are turning their back on the situation and are going to just take their word for gospel instead of investigating what is under their authority. The mayor's office is supposed to direct what the police department does, not the other way around. And until this is straightened out, we have no community. You can find any argument in this community that we've got younger people here, we have more illegal aliens here, we have more drug use here, we have whatever. You want to blame the prisons, fine. But the bottom line is this: Salem is supposed to be a community of families who work and pay taxes and have a right to live on safe streets. We have enormous amount of police officers and nothing happening. You know, one night there was a drug house, there was a huge fight that happened. And I called Salem Police Department, and a woman upstairs also saw this fight. There were 8 people in the backyard, and I watched a man get beat to death, and so did the lady upstairs. And both of us were on the phone with 911 at the same time. I could hear his skull crack, and I could see the blood spray. It was drugs. And the man's body clumped to the ground in a heap. And they dragged it in, and the guy who beat him to death and broke his skull ran across the way and over the railroad tracks and was gone. Where were the police officers? We called them at 1 in the morning. It wasn't until 8 a.m. that they showed up and began walking around and following the bloodline to the house and went and got the body. I've got a problem with that. They could have gotten there, stopped it. They could have caught the guy who did the beating that killed that man. They could not and would not be bothered. And you know what? It's right off Capitol Street. It's 4 blocks from the state capitol. It's not exactly very far away from the Salem Police Department, and that beating took a long time. So when are we as a community going to say, we demand to have the safe community we deserve, that we pay for, that we have a right to, and the respect that we should have as the state capital of Oregon, not the meth capital of the world. I mean, we are the meth capital of the world. We have inherited Hitler's mess, which he took from Japan from the 1900s. It's over 100 years of stupid, and it's gotten uglier and uglier, and people are dying. People are destroyed. Families are ruined. Children are being killed, and worse. There is a worse. So this is a very firm talk, but it's time for me and everyone else to say, get up, make the calls, become informed, check out Netflix, do your research. You will be shocked and surprised. There's even worse drugs out there than meth, basalts, spice. I've learned so much. I've never even witnessed these things before, and now I'm hearing about a thing called crocodile. It won't stop. And you know, prohibition, I'm not so sure what is going to actually work. But until the good people stand up and stop being afraid of what TV tells them about the terrible, scary nasties, until we stand up and say, I'm not afraid of these idiots, this is much more, and we empower our police force to get out there and stop them. If your neighbor sees you smoking from a bong and you're passing it in a group, that's a witness. And that should be grounds enough to go in and have them tested, have them arrested, and remove it. Because there are so many what it takes to clean up after these people, the professionals. It's a dangerous job that you have to wear the equipment that they have to wear, the toxicity that happens to the soil, the plants, how they are affected, the threat to the building. The buildings, condemning's not enough. To get it out of those homes, sometimes you just have to burn the entire building down, but how can you do that if it's going to release the gases that have soaked into the wood? You see the cycle. Cleaning up after meth is a serious thing, and the feds are doing it in our federal parks right now because they leave the city, because you can't bag up garbage and send it to the city dump like this. That's why they put it in boxes and shove it into dark vehicles, and they drive it up into the hill in their four-wheel drive vehicles so that they can dump it. And when they dump it, they're dumping it in our forest. You know, Silver Creek Falls, the riverways, North Fork of the Santiam. You get the picture. Our beautiful Oregon areas are being polluted by the leftover batteries and the debris and the bleach bottles and the peroxide bottles and all the other tubes and buckets and nasties that they've got. It's a dangerous thing. It's horrible. And see, here's where the feds step in, because those are federal properties. If there's debris from all these meth addicts and meth heads and drug users and drug abusers, the manufacturers of it take it onto federal land. The feds now have to use federal dollars to clean up the waterways. We have men who walk through the parkways and all the different little nooks and crannies going up and down back roads. Their job, we're paying money for them to seek out meth garbage dumps that are in our beautiful forest and getting into the waterways. Then we have to pay the money for them to clean it all out without hurting themselves. That's not okay. That's where the feds step in. If you need to learn more, you can go ahead and contact the Drug Enforcement Administration. You can write the governor. He has internet site. You can contact the mayor's office. I think lots of people need to bang on their door because they really don't believe we have a right to Salem being a bedroom town or a business opportunity. And anyone of value is basically being just pushed right out, pushed right out, pushed right out. If this is going to be a cesspool, then here's a heads up. Find a way to move out to somewhere where you can have a healthy life. Meth is everywhere, but Salem's a cesspool. So Pearl, is there anything else you'd like to tell our community?
I just think that Salem's not a safe place anymore, especially if the police department isn't going to be there for you. I don't trust any of those people in charge at all. I've lived here my whole life, and I don't want my children to live here because it's not the same. I don't remember it being like this.
Let's have a good night. God bless.